emergency for the first time in about
This is Jim, and
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus. You have accessed entry 1441.IS2808. Certificate number 27287. Woodstock 99.
Well, it takes a strong man, Woodstock, but I'm showing you that door right now.
Would you say, when you think back to the Dark Ages, would you say you're more interested in the decade of the 780s AD or the 790s AD? 780s or the 790s?
I feel like the 790s I'm more interested in.
The cooler druids?
Yeah, it's a little bit, the 780s were more pop. The 790s got a little darker.
It was a reaction to the 780s.
I feel like there's when thinking that far back in history, and you sort of, Council of Nicaea is right in there, and you kind of, that's a break point where when I think of it, I want to, I pretty well understand coming up to the Council of Nicaea, and then I'm much more curious about what happens afterwards.
It's like a break point they didn't know at the time. Nobody knew that there was a council going on in Nicaea. People weren't like, there wasn't some extra read all about it kid.
Right.
Council in Nicaea reaches agreement on transubstantiation.
That's right. There's a tripartite agreement. Everybody's all the old churches, or all the old gospels, right? Gone forever.
It's like some Neville Chamberlain moment where like our negotiator caved to the Athanasians or I can't think of any heretics.
Peace in our time.
The point is that time telescopes when you get back that far. Today we think there's a huge cultural difference between the parents of the 50s and the parents of the 60s, or the kids of the 70s and the kids of the 80s. But our listeners won't care. They're underwater tarantula men.
It's true, although I got into a fairly protracted internet argument, if you can believe it.
What?
With someone who was...
I love a good PIA.
Trying to make a case that that you couldn't divide... rather you couldn't compress some historical epoch that just coincidentally happened to be their specialized field of study at
Right.
University of Pennsylvania or whatever.
Because I wrote 10,000 words about this, let me tell you.
And I said, well, wait a minute, don't you say ancient Greece? I mean, ancient Greece is a meaningless term by your definition. Or, they were very, very adamant that I couldn't say something like communist China or something, that as a generalization. And it was a thing where clearly they did say ancient Greece in their own history, or in their own way of speaking, but they couldn't admit to being wrong, which is of course my primary way of interacting with people that challenge me on the internet. It's to try and get them to admit that they're wrong, and then I mute them.
That doesn't really ever happen.
Whether they admit that they're wrong or not, they're going to get muted either way, just because they tried to argue with
Nobody
me.
on the internet ever admits they're wrong. When people are wrong, they walk away from their computer and shoot themselves through the head.
Yeah. Or they say, my favorite way of saying they're wrong is...
and you never hear from them again.
They say, fair enough, which...
It's just the right amount of fairness.
It's fair enough is just such cold soup. Like it's not... It
doesn't give you the warm glow of you were right,
no,
John.
It doesn't confirm or deny. It's just like fair enough. And it's like, what do you mean fair enough?
You just run some kind of Chrome macro or app that turns the phrase "fair enough" into "you were right, John," as usual.
I should do that.
So and then you'll get the same warm glow.
I'll get the warm glow right before I mute them.
It's for our convenience. As time telescopes backwards, then the pixels get so tiny, you just have to chunk them or you can't see anything.
Right.
You know, at the time, it did not make sense to think of the 100 Years' War as a long 120-year single epic. But now that the 100 Years' War has little to teach us,
right?
You're okay with a one-sentence summary that does not
teach you. Maybe.
That does not get into the phases and the truces. No, I'm absolutely going to say that the 100 Years' War has nothing to teach anyone.
In this house, we are still fighting the War of the Roses.
Do you have that on your little Seattle sign out front? In this house, science is real. Water is valuable. War of the Roses matter.
We are against Bonapartism, but some of us are Lancastrians.
Wow, this is a divided house, half York, half Lancaster?
Yep, that's right.
Wow, the war is ongoing.
It still is. That's what I'm saying.
So this is all by way of pointing out that we have been criticized for doing... this is a monumental reference work for the ages, and yet it somehow seems very heavy on the late 70s to late 1980s. Uh-huh. Coincidentally, a formative time for you and me.
It was, and that's the time. In answer to our critics, I feel like we are not capable of doing firsthand research about the age of exploration. And a lot of that stuff, if it makes it into the omnibus, it's on the shoulders of scholars prior. Right, that we're just encoding,
and by scholar you mean Pope Smasher 69 or whoever wrote the omnibus, the Wikipedia entry.
But the culture of the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, that's still being digested, and we're here to digest it.
You could have the first take,
right? Exactly,
and it's clear. I mean, one benefit to me is it's clear now from our current moment in 2020 AD, which of those things went down the memory hole and which did not. And I have a much shakier grasp of the memory hole stuff that happened when I was an adult, because I can't really compare. It's harder to compare the impact at the time. Basically, we've had complaints from millennials that there is not enough 90s material in the omnibus.
Millennials have to acknowledge that the 90s were a cultural desert.
So that would be the implication of saying the Noid and Milli Vanilli deserve an omnibus entry, but
right. NKOTB doesn't. But that's even 80s.
No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But Creed and Beanie Babies do not.
Right.
Where's the Boy Meets World omnibus entry?
I bet we could do a pretty compelling entry on Beanie Babies.
Beanie Babies, I think, is coming. Yeah. That's on my 90s list.
Oh, it is. Good.
Is it? It's 90s, right? I don't even know.
I mean, there was 10 years ago, there were a lot of, in some of the darker internet corners that I traipsed, there were a lot of memes that were like, only 90s kids will get this. And then there would be some Pokemon thing. And it's like, yeah, okay, only 90s kids get that. And only 90s kids ever will.
Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not sure. I mean, I have long made the contention that 1997 is the year that didn't exist. Name one thing that happened in 1997. Yeah, right. I can tell you one thing. OK Computer came out. Name another thing.
Clinton's second inaugural, about which I remember nothing.
Right. No, it's 1997 is just a place where it's like a Fukuyama hole where history actually did come to an end and then I guess restarted. History rebooted. And by 1999, there was a new the history was ongoing again.
But I bet if we look at Wikipedia, it's been patched up by the Matrix. The Matrix has created retroactive things.
That's the thing
that happened in 1997. They didn't actually happen, but the universe has arranged for time space to continue through 1997.
It's like the 13th floor. 1997 is it's been retconned.
Princess Diana died. No, she didn't.
Not really.
Mars Pathfinder lands on Mars. No.
Say what?
Deep Blue defeats Kasparov. No, see, none of these things actually happened.
Go ahead. Find a thing in 1997 that happened.
I do actually remember where I was when Princess Di died.
Yeah, I was in the exact same place I was when
in the
I
other
heard.
Car. No, I was watching.
You were on a motorcycle.
I was taking pictures. I was watching GoldenEye at a friend's apartment.
I was sitting at my job at the newsstand, which is exactly where I was when when OK Computer was released. So, I mean, I guess the one thing I know about 1997 is I worked at the newsstand. What else? Name a thing. Princess Diana.
Heaven's Gate suicide. You think those people are all still alive with Princess Diana?
I mean, what was
Kyoto
that?
Protocol. See, that really didn't happen.
No. So, I mean, I see what 90s kids are trying to say, that we haven't like foregrounded.
Even the things that did happen are just echoes of better things that happened in different years. OJ's civil verdict.
Yeah, I challenge anyone to write even a one-page essay about the importance of 1997. Now, you can list a bunch of nothings that happened, maybe, but if I were to have told you Princess Diana, if I were to tell you Princess Diana died in 1998, would you fight me? I mean, if I told you that Woodstock happened in 1970, you would say, what? The original Woodstock.
I would be like, no, John, you're several months off.
Right.
It happened in July 69.
That's right. Several months off. And you know that, and I know that, and everybody knows that. But if I were to say the Kyoto Protocols, Ken, they happened in 1999.
What could be more 1997 than getting together with your gang?
Yeah, your gang.
And with your
posse.
With your posse. There we go. And going to see Val Kilmer as the Saint at a multiplex near you. Remember all the good times we had? All the Val Kilmer quotes and memes as the Saint?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably do a compelling omnibus on raver culture, but even raver culture was over by 97. Right now, there are a bunch of people slowly pulling the pacifiers out of their mouths going, what?
It is.
No, it wasn't.
Did you know the kids are making candy bracelets today? Caitlin's making my daughter's making the little bracelets that you used to wave in the air at raves if you had something to sell.
Oh, wow.
But now it's
meaningless like everything.
Yeah. Kids just want to put, BLM or their name or whatever on their.
My kid has them too. And I'm like, hey, there they are. Everything bad comes around.
But Eric Ryan, a omnibus listener who donated at the whatever we call the $50 level.
What do we call it? The sentient cephalopod?
Sentient aspen? No, maybe I think washing bear is fourth.
Washing bear.
Someday I'm going to learn these.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great for when I have to actually record an ad about them.
You could learn them or just write them down.
He requested Woodstock 99.
Oh.
The day the 90s died.
Only 90s kids will get this.
What are 90s kids anyway? Like
millenniums.
Yes, but what would you say are the traits of the millennials? Like, are we going to do this as the scolding older person version of the millennial traits?
No, I don't. I don't think we should do that. That's
even if true, it's all their parents' fault.
Yeah,
they weren't buying themselves those participation trophies.
That boomer culture argument is well trod ground. But what distinguishes the millenniums?
Is they love Val Kilmer as the Saint. They're like, he's so much better than Roger Moore.
They're a much larger generation demographically than we, the oft maligned and forgotten Generation X.
Gen X deserves to be maligned.
Yeah.
Did you see the demographic stuff? Like currently the only generation in which Trump has a polling lead. We're recording this in the run up to the election.
Is Generation X?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
He's he's 5 points down with boomers, whereas he was 5 points up against Clinton.
Oh, you know what it is?
5 points down, 10 points, 20 points down with millennials.
It's the same. It's all those 50-year-olds that didn't have the light of indie rock to pull them out of the grunge swamps and grunge and contemporary country music. Those are the two pillars of Generation X 90s culture. Kind of
post grunge for a lot of them. I guess the birthdays for Gen Y, as we used to call them.
Gen Y.
Because we like to define the next generation as like a inferior clone of ourselves.
It started in 82, 83?
Yeah, 81 to 98, something like that.
Yeah. But every millennium that I talk to that was born in 81, 82, 83 wants to make the case that they're a cusp.
Why are you? Because they'd prefer to be X?
Well, because they don't, they're trying to like say, oh, but I watched the Brady Bunch I'm not sure they want to be X. They just don't want to be millenniums, and they're trying to figure out a way. And I think there's a case to be made if you're born in 1981 that you have less in common with someone born in 1994.
I mean, a lot of it is just, where your pop culture was coming from. If you weren't watching the right Nickelodeon shows, maybe you didn't have cable.
Right.
And you were locked into whatever what the VHSs your parents had. You're going to feel a little older, just like, you and I growing up with Beatles music.
3-2-1 Contact started when I was in 6th grade. And so I felt like 3-2-1 Contact was still part of my kid culture. But 3-2-1 Contact got rebooted. And so there are millenniums that are like, 3-2-1 Contact, totally. That was my childhood. And I'm like, there was 10 years between.
Now you know how I feel about Val Kilmer taking over the role of Simon Templar, a.k.a. the Saint.
I didn't even hear about it. I still have my
this is
the
all
Saint
news to you.
DVDs with Roger Moore.
I mean, the marks of Gen X are well known.
Yeah,
they're the slackers.
We talk about it all the time.
And I guess that turned out. They'll go with the herd. They'll do whatever. They'll own Midwestern used car lots and vote for Trump. Apparently,
100%.
If that's the easiest, if that's the path of least resistance.
Slackers the entire time. Never, ever, ever stood up and took responsibility for their chores.
They stopped. They were too busy skateboarding is the main problem.
We say they, but it's us.
We were skateboarding, 17, 18 hours a day?
Yeah. I mean, all the guys that were more attractive to girls were skateboarding.
And that only leaves you 6 or 7 hours to read Thrasher magazine.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's tough. No, we were probably
Grand Royal.
We were playing D&D 16, 17 hours a day, which only leaves you 6 or 7 hours to read Dragon.
I was just reading Jane's military handbooks and trying to identify.
Yeah, what do you call what's the World War I generation called? That's what you actually were. I'm on the cusp, man.
Yeah,
I'm actually a Jerry or a Bosch or a
Bosch. I can still look at the silhouette of Russian fighter jets of the 1970s and tell you what they are.
Generation Bosch. Yeah, I remember all the VH1 pandering to Generation Bosch. I hated it. I guess I believe the digital native stuff.
Yeah.
Like they were, the 90s kids were the first people that never had to remember learning how to boot a home computer, start a video game. The video game console was in the house before they were.
I went back to
so
college.
It seemed like it had always been there.
When I was 32, and I was in a seminar with some kids that were 20.
Hello, fellow kids.
And watching them with computers was the first time I really noticed that digital native gap.
Did it blow your mind just now when you wanted the spreadsheet to be in a different order? And I said, yeah, you can do that. That's what spreadsheets are for.
Yeah. And then you did it right in front of me. And I was like, wow.
It was like seeing a David Blaine Street Magic.
But that's your and my age gap is just enough, right?
We had a home computer when I was 7.
Yeah, no, they hadn't invented them when I was 7.
It was a big whirring wall of tapes.
But when I was a senior in high school, there was a computer lab in our school, and I never went in there. And only once, I think, peered in through the little square glass window and looked at all the people sitting at their 64K IBM PCs and shuddered in horror. Because I think there was still an association that to be taking a computer class was to be preparing for a career in stenography, or it was you were going to have a job as a.
But kind of a cursed one?
Yeah, well, like a data entry job.
It was like making the new generation of insect drone slave.
Yeah, they were typists. Yeah. There wasn't a sense that learning computers was going to be creative. At least no one ever made that case to me until I was in college. So anyway, watching 20-year-olds, and this would have been in the late 90s, watching them just navigate all the pull-down menus. I was like, whoa. How did you find that? Where was that? And it was just like, well, you pull down this.
Everybody's got grandparents, John.
I was like,
this story doesn't make you any kind of...
No. But I was 30, right? I should have been... And I was more flexible probably than a lot. I still have plenty of people from my high school that aren't on the internet, like peers, high school girlfriends that just have zero... You can't find them. There's zero presence.
Because you murdered them and buried them in the
all the way back in the early 90s. No, they just didn't make the transition.
I mean, it does raise the question of looking back, what the big technology game changer will be. Because we, and even our parents, were raised looking at, even our parents are part of the science experiment of what happens when you just put a baby in front of a glowing rectangle.
Right.
You know, like.
Not my parents, but yours.
Right, exactly. Boomer parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the first generation to experiment with that. And Gen X is kind of the first generation to experiment with what happens if it's a screen they can control. You know, what happens if they have video games.
I thought Gen X was the first generation where the experiment was, what if there are no jobs and no prospects?
I mean, that's every subsequent generation too.
What if there's no retirement?
Don't say that to millennials because they think we're the last ones that had it good.
Oh, I know. They do. You and I both have mortgages, so that puts us in the camp of people should be up against the wall.
We are the enemy for sure.
But we had no jobs, no prospects, no retirement, no unions.
But then I guess you've got a generation where the latest generation, the rectangles are handheld and always with you and do everything now, not just, you know, they replace social interaction. I guess that's the crazy thing. Well, the millennials, then that's the millennials because they're the internet natives. Or at least the fairly early internet adopters.
Right.
You know, around the time they got into high school, their parents were getting AOL.
Message boards and so forth.
So they're the ones that started to replace social interaction with glowing rectangles. And then I guess Gen Z, my kids, your kids, are the ones that are going to replace every aspect of their lives with glowing rectangles.
For a long time, 10, 15 years ago, we were speculating that our kids were going to be the VR generation, right?
Yeah.
That they were going to have heads-up displays.
Cyberspace.
Yeah, they were going to have, data flying around, Matrix-like. Every time you looked at a building.
Augmented reality.
Yeah, there'd be some screen that popped up and told you when it was built and who lives there. And
I like how that's your use case. Is looking at specs for old buildings.
You asshole. But that hasn't come to pass, and I wonder whether what Google Glass burned that all down for a generation, or whether it's a yet. I mean, I know people are working on it everywhere. It just hasn't mainstreamed.
It's very clear that I don't know. It seems intuitively obvious that somewhere along this process you can break a baby's brain.
Right.
Or at least create essentially a new species.
New baby.
By giving,
That's what we call them. New baby trademark.
And maybe it's the 90s. Maybe it's NU.
Yeah, Noi baby.
Boy baby. It's like a Creed or a Nickelback baby. But somewhere along the line, you do create kind of a new species by saying, hey, this is how while the brain is plastic and developing, whoa. And I don't know if you give that brain howdy doody, or it's if you give that brain Pong.
Right.
Or it's if you give that brain email, or it's if you give that brain TikTok. But somewhere along that continuum, we've created a new species.
You rewire, yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe that's why we don't do millennial topics on this show. That would be like covering lemurs.
Well, every futureling is post this transition, and we don't talk very often about the fact that our listeners may just be virtual intelligences, right?
They're like, when are they going to fix Google Glass so we can arise from the new machine?
I mean, our audience could be clones of our own souls that are now reproducing infinitely and listening to us recursively.
Our listeners are our past internet and video game avatars that have gained sentience and are still wandering through the dungeon
or through
the message board.
Body blow, knock them out.
Yeah, it's Wreck-It Ralph basically. They all have rich inner lives after the knockout.
Wreck-It Ralph but with our faces.
So this is who we're addressing. These odd avatar lemur. So what I'm saying is distant future. You don't care about the distance between the 80s and the 90s at all. To you, it's it's worse than trying to parse the Lancastrian War and the Carolinian War. But right now, it's a huge. Right now, every generation is a generational struggle.
What's our Council of Nicaea, though? Is it the advent of the personal computer? It's certainly not Vatican II.
It's tech. It's 100% tech, but I don't know.
What's the dividing line? It's
probably creation of the World Wide Web in 94. I don't know if I had to guess. It's either that or iPhone.
Smartphone.
Yeah, I guess I guess the future knows. They'll tell us what.
It will be crazy to the future to even connect to the personal computer as anything other than a precursor to the iPhone.
Yeah,
right?
It'll be the way you and I talk about ice houses in the summer. Yes, that's the thing you had because there were no refrigerators.
All the great conversations you and I have had about ice houses over the years.
Got to get some sawdust in there, or it'll melt. That's what I think.
So yeah, it's got to be personal tech, right? That's the transition. But unless it's bio augmentation, which is something that all of this tech is going to lead up to, but it's really bio augmentation that.
Or what if this is all a dead end and the epical event actually is it could be a dystopian future with a civilization ending event, or it could be
machines take over,
or it could be the aliens arriving.
Oh,
sure. Maybe they're going to be like, these guys are talking about smartphones like they matter. But we all know on August 8th, 2023, that all ended in tears
and rain.
Or universal peace and harmony when.
Now, Ken, you've made a big point over the years to explain to me that the large moon low in the sky is an illusion. And
I tell you this every time I come over to your house. It's the first thing I say.
And the Earth is not hollow, and nobody is living inside the center of the Earth. But you should know that a lot of futurelings respond very negatively to the suggestion that UFOs are extraterrestrial intelligence, and
much less interdimensional, which I think is kind of your take, right?
Yeah. Much. They don't want to hear about interdimensional UFOs.
I was reading the other day. I guess Obama was asked once because somebody recently asked Trump about Area 51 or whatever it is.
It's that
Area
51.
And
unless you're positing that there's an Area 52, in which case I really want to. That's where I want to. I
want to go to Area 51 and a half, which is where they keep all the magic Hogwarts craft. No, somebody asked Trump something related to aliens, and I saw Obama's similar quote on the same topic, where he said, "I can tell you this: we have never made contact with a extraterrestrial intelligence aboard a UFO." It seemed so legalistic and narrow.
Yeah.
Like, how could you read that and not think, wait, that's not the question I asked. Thank you for answering the question you wish I had asked. But
yeah, right. That doesn't preclude them having warehouses full of alien corpses.
So clearly Obama is a alien.
Right.
When he takes off the mask.
Interdimensional alien.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at him and tell he's a praying mantis under that.
You think that explains the ears?
Yeah, it's clearly a praying mantis in human clothes.
This is all in aid of making the case that Woodstock 99 was actually an epical thing.
Whoa. Woodstock 99? Woodstock 99? Woodstock 99? What are you talking about?
Woodstock 99.
Woodstock 99?
Yeah, this is a request from listener Eric.
Oh, Woodstock 99 is a thing that I tried to erase from my memory, and I'm still trying to. Why are you doing this?
This explains why you don't remember 1997. This is just more about whatever your personal chemical state was.
Well, in 1999, I was a rock musician. A practicing one.
So you probably knew all about the big music festivals.
Well, I knew a lot of these bands, but this summer was the summer that and here it is. Those people playing Omnibus Bingo. Here's your center square.
Nazis.
Nope. That's the summer I walked across Europe. Oh. So I was out of the country and only hearing about this giant concert that featured Hoobastank and Monkey Butt and all
You've
these...
got the list in front of you. You don't have to pretend it was Hoobastank.
New metal bands and weird, Buck Cherry and whatnot. So I wasn't... It
was just Smash Mouth on every stage.
Over and over.
Over and over.
I wasn't here for the concert itself. After I got back, I heard about it.
So you are not going to have any better sense than I do of how far down the memory hole Woodstock 99 is right now. And I think the answer is not very. For one thing, we recently had the 20th anniversary in our era.
So weird.
And that led to a lot of reconsiderations of that moment. And also just contextualizing what it meant for that generation and making the case that it was, in fact, a pretty big deal.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so weird because I think of all these bands, with the exception of a very few.
For example, you got the list in front of you. Who was playing, John?
Well, let's see. The first night, Thursday, there was there was a pre-show, which is kind of interesting. And it had, 3, 6, 9, almost 20 bands, 18 bands. And the first 9 of them don't even warrant Wikipedia entries.
That's how you know a music festival is good, when there's no hyperlink on the on the Wikipedia band.
There's a band called Rattle Basket. There's a band called In Bloom, which is just like, let's name our band after a Nirvana song. But the bands that were on the main stage, Vertical Horizon, G Love and Special Sauce, String Cheese Incident, and then George Clinton, the headliner.
Stick around for George Clinton.
But you've got your Buck Cherry, Insane Clown Posse. You've got the Roots here, Mo, Lit, Jamiroquai, Live, Korn,
A lot of
Bush.
things about the music festivals of this era I've noticed is they are pretty. There's an attempt at diversity, but it's very much a Star Trek diversity where you've got one token reggae act, one token country act, and it's always really some 50-year-old white promoter's idea of what a reggae act is, or what a funk act is.
Well, and this is the
rap acts here are the Roots and Ice Cube.
Although the Roots aren't really rap.
You got Los Lobos. That's like a quick name a Latino band. Okay, we'll get Los Lobos.
Los Lobos is one of the great rock bands.
I love Los Lobos.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying,
you
can see the imagination that goes into checking off the Latino box there.
Well, and these are the last days, or at least maybe the last peak of rock cultural appropriation days. It's the new metal rap, white rappers, but also Jamiroquai with his Native American imagery, and you've got a lot of young white kids singing in fake blues voices.
You've got you got Adam Duritz in his dreads still.
You've got a lot. Well, there are a lot of dreads on these bands.
A lot of white dreads at Woodstock '99.
So there, you see a lot of bands where you're like, I don't know if that would fly anymore.
The context of Woodstock '99.
Everclear. Oh, Guster played.
I mean, it's tempting to think of it as a generational thing because it has Woodstock in the name. These guys are trading on the idea of the 30th anniversary of the original Woodstock Music Festival. There had been a 25th anniversary concert, Woodstock '94, which also had its logistical struggles, but was not the
was that a retro throwback like hippie thing?
It had as many repeat acts as they could as drugs would let them have, basically, as drugs and mortality would let them have. So I don't have the lineup in front of me, but Arrested Development is there singing Tennessee, but so is Country
Crosby, Stills,
Joe
and
and the
Nash.
Fish. Crosby, Stills, and Nash are there, but like featuring maybe it's like John Sebastian or something. Who else is
by that?
I'm trying to think who the other original bands are. Joe Cocker opened it.
Santana.
I think just as he did. Santana probably was there. Let me look.
Santana's the one that could be in all these shows.
Shauna Na was not there. But there was some. But so in between your Blind Melons and your Cypress Hill, it's like, hey kids, this is Woodstock, and it was actually called 2 More Days of Peace and Music to match the hippie Summer of Love era, or the hippie Love Child era branding.
I'm not sure Cypress Hill is bringing a ton of peace and love. I mean, a version of it.
Well, they're bringing some of the, at least
they're bringing some hits from the bong.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. They're bringing the kind of the drug-induced relaxation that we would associate with 69.
Right.
Although the year, not the activity. But actually the whole thing, I mean, there's a few, I'm trying to look at the angriest band.
In
the
94.
angriest act at Woodstock '94. It's probably Perry Farrell. It's Pornos for Pyros.
He's not angry.
I know.
He's just super high.
Gil Scott-Heron. I mean, Green Day played.
I think that's part of my issue with the music of the late '90s as represented by this bill.
It's night and day, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of anger.
This is
here.
Angry, testosterone-driven, white male music, and that's not an attempt by the promoters to push that. That's just what rock. That was kind of the base case for rock.
Yeah, I mean,
in the 1990s.
Not all of it, but if on the same day you've got Insane Clown Posse, Korn, Offspring.
Well, look at the Saturday night main stage lineup. After Alanis Morissette, it's Limp Bizkit, Rage Against the Machine, Metallica.
Kid Rock is on that bill early on.
Kid Rock is there
Yeah.
between the Tragically Hip and Wyclef.
But that's the thing. The other side of that same bill is super like Virginia hippie. It's Wyclef Jean, Counting Crows, Dave Matthews Band, and Alanis Morissette.
And there's some kind of throwback boomer chill, there's Bruce Hornsby for the moms and dads.
All of this suggests to me big jeans.
This is what music
Big jeans
kind of had
and
become.
wallet chains.
Like this is what rock at least had become in the post-grunge era. It was it was the ingredients of grunge mixing with this kind of poppy punk that dared to be very commercially successful, Offspring, Green Day kind of stuff.
A lot of yelling and a lot of rapping.
And then rap and country influences coming in.
Black Contacts.
And
This is not peak Metallica.
And you wind up with kind of this awful rap rock we've talked about on the show before. And not all the bands, not all these angry bands are bad. I mean, apparently Korn's set was great at Woodstock 99. And,
Sure it was.
And I'd love to see, I wish I could go back and see Rage Against the Machine and Metallica back to back.
We've got the following night, Megadeth, Godsmack, Sevendust, Creed, Chili Peppers, Everlast.
Well, there's kind of a weird schizophrenic thing about music festivals like this. And I've noticed it's still how festivals are often programmed.
Oh my God.
Which
Elvis Costello.
We'll talk about that.
Wow. He'd show up for the opening of a suitcase.
There is kind of something for everyone on these lineups. As you can tell, when you just say Willie Nelson, then Elvis Costello, then the Brian Setzer Orchestra, then Jewel, you can tell it's kind of being programmed as, these are not all your favorite bands. This is kind of a something for everyone lineup.
Well, Bumbershoot here in Seattle did that for decades.
Yeah.
And was extremely successful at it.
With multiple stages, you can do it. It becomes an experience you curate, not a single piece of art you sit through.
Right.
And that's how music festivals did not start that way. I mean, for context, you've got the games of ancient Greece, which in addition to the athletic competitions would have festivals for drama and singers and instrumentalists.
But the thing that united it was that everyone was naked.
Yes.
Yes. And
no matter what the event,
Woodstock 99, if everyone had been naked.
And it doesn't matter whether it's just a really high note or a really high hurdle, you're going to see some jiggling.
Some gigolo ants, maybe.
Gigolo
who
ants.
are here on the bill.
The Gigolo Ants are on the emerging artist stage, which is very confusing to me, since wasn't their first record like literally 15 years earlier?
But the Gigolo Ants had, what was their...
I guess John Entwistle is also on the emerging artist stage, so it's very loosely curated emergement.
My friend Phil was the guitar player of the Gigolo Ants, but I don't think by 1998 he was.
My friend Phil's a pretty good 90s band name.
My friend Phil?
Actually, my friend Phil is more Woodstock 69. After Country Joe and the Fish, you got My Friend Phil. Just some easygoing East Bay guys.
Let's see. Oh, Counting Crows were on a co-headlining tour with the Wallflowers. They claim it happened in 1997, but somehow they
well, nothing happened in 1997, so clearly it's a cover-up.
Yeah, it's a cover for something, for some UFOs. Ken, we've come up with some exciting T-shirt designs in the last couple of months. What can you tell us about T-shirts going forward?
I like the December ones. After years of requests, we have finally decided there should be an omnibus shirt with a mail truck on it.
Yay! Mail truck shirt!
And it's fun. It's got Mr. Zip driving the truck, that kind of nightmare-inducing representative of the post office's zone improvement plan. And he's having a fun time driving his mail truck on its last legs. And it says omnibus. And then there's a different shirt about...
He's kind of ghost riding, isn't he? He's a little bit out of the truck. Like he's only got one arm and one leg
and
inside
he's leaning
the
out the right side, but that is correct.
Yeah,
that's the right side. His hood is up. It's smoking. He's quite a rakish young man. He's a real daredevil here.
Yeah. Huh.
And then this is the de Havilland Beaver, right? You talk about the aviation one because I can't remember what this is.
It is. It's the de Havilland Beaver from the front end.
It's landing on a Alaskan lake with its sea pods, with its pontoons.
That's
or sea
right.
pods, as we call it.
That's right. It's a float plane, as we say in the parlance. It shows its very distinctive and characteristic radial engine from the front. So there's no mistaking the profile of the de Havilland Beaver.
These are some good-looking shirts about some popular omnibus entries. 2 new designs every month, so these will be gone at the end of December. Don't miss out.
That's right. This ad has a time limit. You've got what? Over 2 weeks, so almost 3 weeks.
Go to omnibusproject.com/store. You'll always see the links to our 2 new shirts that our friend Dave has up for us at Mediocrity. You'll also find a link to our TeePublic store where we have a wide array of stuff with the Omnibus logo on it. Hoodies, what else? Hats, I think. Mugs.
Onesies?
Phone cases. Yeah, onesies, but only in adult sizes.
Ha 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 ha. Rawr. If you show up at my house in an omnibus adult onesie,
Yes,
you
John?
you can spend the night.
How does that sentence end?
Maybe in my guest room, but definitely you can spend the night.
So don't forget, if you're interested in omnibus gear for a limited time only, head to omnibusproject.com/store.
That's omnibusproject.com/store.
But the Modern Music Festival was born in the 50s in Newport. The Newport Jazz Festival was, and it was just, I think, a couple of rich, just, well-heeled jazz fans bothering a local club owner.
Wait, they didn't come from the mean streets of Newport, Rhode Island?
Well, I think they were the ones who said, hey, we'll throw money at this. We think it would be fun to have outdoor music. And he said, that's not a thing. And they were like, well, summers are super boring. Wouldn't it be cool to just go to the park and listen to jazz? And so, money talks, and these,
suckers walk.
The wealthy residents paid for it, and the Modern Music Festival was born. And, in its early incarnations, it is, it's of a piece. You sit and listen through all your favorite jazz acts in order because it works as a whole.
Right.
And that's not true with the Bumbershoot Woodstock 99 model here, where it's, that's something else about the late 90s. So, excess, right?
Right. Oh, that's right.
History's over.
And you can have...
We all grew up in kind of the complacency of the Clinton administration. Let's just do the most of everything.
There were a lot of bands at Woodstock in 69, but...
And there's some diversity, right? Like you mentioned Otis Redding, I think. No, wait, that's Monterey. But there's some attempted R&B acts.
Well, sure.
69.
There's... original Woodstock had Richie Havens.
Right.
It had Santana.
But it's funny how that's still like a white rock fan's idea of
don't tell Richie Havens that.
Jimi Hendrix.
Hendrix. Oh, Sly and the Family Stone was at the original Woodstock.
That's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, Otis Redding's at Monterey. Sometime I want to talk to you about how Richie Havens plays the guitar, because it's very disturbing to me when I watch the Woodstock movie.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Ravi Shankar. But Woodstock 99 is just, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Right. How many bands played? It seems like you could not possibly have seen all these bands.
Well, there's simultaneous. There's 3 simultaneous stages. Yeah. And it is over 30 a day. It was held between July 22nd and 25th, 1999. So after the pre-show, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in Rome, New York.
The famous Rome, New York.
Upstate New York is the epicenter of these Woodstocks, although, the original Woodstock happened at Bethel, which is not that far upstate at all. Woodstock 94 is at Saugerties, maybe 70 miles north. Rome's about 120 miles north of that. So Woodstock is clearly going to get to Canada at some point, or drown in the Great Lakes if Woodstock 99 had not killed it. And it's appropriate that it was Rome because, as we will see,
it burned.
There's going to be fiddling while it burns. It'll be Anthony Kiedis and Flea fiddling. But
so you're saying that this event, Woodstock 99, actually killed Woodstock forever? You don't think somebody could resurrect this?
What's the next anniversary? Wait, 2019. There was no Woodstock 50. It would have been last year, and it didn't happen.
Whoa! It must have killed it to have.
Can you imagine
the 50th anniversary?
And I'm sure there were plenty of think pieces, and maybe one of those Life magazine things that they only sell in supermarkets now, like square bound remembering Jackie Kennedy or whatever. I'm sure there was one of those for the 50th of Woodstock, but there was no music event.
I have to say that the last few years of of big festivals, I've definitely graduated to being one of these like Generation X artists that kind of doesn't understand what the kids are listening to. But a lot of my friends are the booking agents of these big festivals. And when I see the lineups, Coachella and Sasquatch and,
R.I.P. Sasquatch.
Yeah, the big festivals that defined my time in music. It's just one after another bands that I've never heard of and can't even tell what kind of band it is by the name. I mean, most of the bands, if you see Insane Clown Posse, you can kind of put together what kind of music
I know what
it
the
is.
vibe is going to be.
But so many of these bands, and so I would talk to my friends like, what are these bands? And a lot of the booking agents also don't know.
Oh, interesting.
Because the bands have
It's
become
just a YouTuber.
Yeah, they've become popular on the web, and so they don't have a touring history really. They don't. It's not clear what their record sales numbers are even, but they've got 50 million views, and so these agents like know they're a big deal. They're on the list of what kids are clamoring to see, but they're not even really sure what it is, and their backline, which is, like what their rider says they need, is like 2 USB cables and
a microphone.
Yeah. Or not even a microphone. But they're 20,000 kids show up to see them. And so it's really changed kind of what festivals look like and
the old senescence test where you could see how out of touch you were by seeing what kind of font size you would have to get to on the lineup before you got to a band you didn't know. I mean,
right.
really, I do the reverse of it now. I'm like, how far down before I get to a band I do know?
Yeah. Or can you look at a bill like that and find a band you know?
Woodstock 99 was most famous for how it ended. It was not just for the hundreds of thousands of people who were there. It was a live pay-per-view event as well, and MTV covered the out of it. And it's most famous for how it ended, which is on Sunday night. An anti-gun activist group handed out a bunch of peace candles for kind of a show of support for the cause. The peace candles ended up starting a bunch of not very peaceful bonfires.
Right on.
I think the night was supposed to end with some rave event, but the final act on the main stage was Red Hot Chili Peppers on Sunday night. And as they're playing, they can see just 30-foot flames starting to sprout up out in the venue. Keita says, "Holy shit, looks like Apocalypse Now out there," from the stage. What's
crazy is that of all of the bands, like the Chili Peppers do not espouse violence or
no. Well, that's the thing.
They're as hippie as a band comes.
Flea was naked for the whole set,
right?
Apart from his
with a sock
bass guitar. Yeah, I don't know if he even had the sock.
I learned one of the first live events I ever did. I emceed an air band contest at my, I guess, junior year in high school. And the air band concert was one of the big events at my high school in the late 80s. There were probably 15 or 20 bands playing tennis rackets.
Got to lip sync to tennis rackets.
And they would get up there and lip sync a tune, and they have a dance routine. The whole school turned out. It was in the big theater. It was a big event. People practiced for it for a long time. And I was the MC, it was the first time I'd ever really been given the stage in that way. Like, it's your show. You bring out the bands and whatnot. And at one point I came out and I had a set of wax lips, which was a hilarious gag.
It's pretty funny
back in the day. And I came out and wax lips got a big laugh. And then I took the wax lips and I just kind of hucked them out into the crowd, like with my most insouciant
Playfully.
Sort of like, hey, there you go. And then I talked for a little while and like, so anyway, coming up next. And then those wax lips came back at me at 100 miles an hour. Some baseball player got a hold of it and just, whew, and, narrowly missed me. But when I walked off stage, the choir director was standing there. He was stage managing it. And he leaned over and said, Never throw anything out into the audience that you don't want to see coming back at you.
I like how the choir director's seen some shit, man.
And I learned it. So yeah, this like peace candle thing, it really resonates with me.
And it should have been predictable at that point, because, even though Sunday night was the big conflagration that ended in rioting and trailers being lit on fire, all the merch got looted, a big TV control tower was torn down, a Mercedes-Benz got tipped over and broke somebody's leg in flipping this car. The rioting went on for 5 hours and required 500 state troopers to come in and put it down. In the days that followed, when this became a big news story, the promoters and the mayor of Rome and anybody who had anything to do with this would just emphasize how it was a great event. There was, of course, a small number of hooligans. There was a small number of thugs that made trouble on Sunday night. But really, it was just a great Woodstock event apart from the unpleasantness.
Sure.
And it came out in subsequent weeks and months. As the oral history of this event kind of grew, it became very clear that was not true at all. That the event was disastrous in a near fire festival way from the beginning. And it just happened to boil over when the Chili Peppers were on stage. But as you're saying, they are not the kind of band that would incite that or delight in it. I mean, they ended by playing a cover of Jimi Hendrix's Fire as everything burned. And I don't even know if that was supposed to be their encore or not.
I'm sure that they knew the tune.
Right. And it was a callback to, Jimmy lighting his guitar on fire when he closed the original Woodstock.
Right.
But it turned out to be very apropos indeed, but not something that they had incited. They were reacting to it.
Hendrix didn't light his guitar on fire at Woodstock. That was Monterey.
Oh, yeah.
At Woodstock, he went on at dawn or something, right?
Yeah, they don't show the crowd because there's almost nobody there. And that was, so even there was a similar scene at Woodstock 99, people waking up on Sunday morning. It was already a refugee camp there. It was the kind of vibe where it's just nothing but bodies and solo cups as far as the eye can see, people sleeping on pizza boxes because
ground was muddy.
Yeah. And crucially, they're white, so you can tell if they've been peed on or not. Raw sewage everywhere. I mean, let's talk about the setting. So it was held outside Rome, New York, but it wasn't in kind of the peaceful pasture you would expect from, watching the original Woodstock concert film.
Walmart parking lot?
It was a decommissioned Air Force base.
Oh, the best.
So worse than a Walmart parking lot, probably. The former Fort, it's like Griffiths or something, some 40s to 90s era Air Force base.
But it was paved in portion then. Heavily
paved, very little shade, no shade trees. It turned out to be a super fun site, I think well into the 2000s because of all the heavy metals they were trying to get out of the groundwater.
Right.
And it was late July in upstate New York. So 100-degree heat, very little shade.
What could go wrong?
Water was very scarce. There was supposed to be free water, but like many festivals of this kind, they're not incentivized. Piles of food were confiscated at the gate, and all the water sources seemed to be hard to find or shut off.
Wow.
In the aid of getting people to pay $4 for a bottled water, $5 for a hot dog. I mean, that doesn't sound crazy now. Those are airport or basketball game prices, right?
Yeah, $4 for a bottle of water when it's 100 degrees, though, does feel usurious. I mean, any amount for a hot dog.
And keep in mind that you've got a captive audience.
Yeah,
it would take 3 hours for people to get back to Rome, New York, if they wanted to come and go. So basically, nobody came and went. So at a baseball game, you can say, "Well, the hot dogs are $10. I'll eat later."
Yeah. You need water.
Whereas here, yeah, people really had no choice. And all the vendors were run by kind of one outfit. They were charging individual vendors $70 for a case of water or soda that would have cost $5 in Rome. So it was a whatever that is.
And then they had
1,800% increase.
They were marking it up. Then the vendors
they marked it up very slightly, but everybody had to sell water or soda for $4 and upward, or they couldn't make a penny. And And people and so people ran out of money very quickly. At the end of the concert, at least 1,000 people, one single outfit arranged for rides for 1,000 people who were broke due to concession spending.
Wow, I'm mad now. I'm already mad. I'm ready to turn over a Mercedes-Benz.
You were super pro Woodstock 99 going in when you were like, Korn, Insane Clown. This is a pretty good lineup.
Yeah, but come on. Free water. You got to have water.
It gets worse. Sanitation was a problem. There were 2,600 porta potties, but
nobody to clean them.
The plan was to empty them at night, and it turned out the party never ended.
There was no night
at Woodstock 99.
Only day.
So yeah, it's some kind of Asimov story. So the porta potties were never emptied.
Oh my God!
And by Saturday, sewage is flowing into people's tents and campgrounds.
Oh no! This is awful.
Yeah.
Trigger alert.
Everybody's nice new Chuck Taylors.
It's too late to put a trigger alert again.
And it has public health ramifications. There was a real uptick of stomach cases at Rome hospitals.
Oh no! So then people are barfing and pooping too from the bad sewage
everywhere. Oh. And these being young people, a kind of anything goes atmosphere is pervasive.
Sure.
And
that would be true anywhere.
I mean, it's a little tricky. The pay-per-view cameras love it because they are picking out somebody in the crowd, taking off her top or flashing the band, every few minutes.
Yeah.
And the bands, of course, are encouraging it.
But in this kind of, in this environment, that starts to get a little rapey.
It gets rapey very quickly. From the stage, both Flea and Dexter Holland of Outkast are being like, hey, leave her alone. Like, hey.
Dexter Holland is
sorry, of the Offspring. What did I say? Outkast. Yeah. Do you don't know Dexter 3000 from Outkast? Sorry, Dexter from the Offspring. Both of them are yelling at guys in the crowd. You can't just grope her just because she's wearing that,
Right.
But it gets bad really quick. And I don't know if we know to this day how bad it got. There were, somewhere on the order of 12 claims of sexual violence, like lots of rape allegations, including like literal gang rapes happening in the mosh pits in front of the stage, which is, and this is not because of the anything goes, free love Woodstock vibe.
No.
But the same kind of idea that, hey, this is not real life for these 3 days. We can do what we want definitely informs both things. Like, I'm going to make a bad decision about how much of whatever I'm ingesting, and then I'm going to take off my top.
Right.
But can turn less carefree pretty quick.
Well, a lot of the music thematically is not we're all in this together, peace and love.
That's the next thing I want to get into.
But yeah, it seems like those reports of sexual violence would be dramatically underreported relative to anyone that got reported. There are probably 5 that didn't.
Yeah, the music is not incidental. It's not like the performance is going on and then tragically there's some weird refugee camp happening. I mean, the two things are very much feeding each other. The people are all here to see the music, and there were the security, the venue security was called the Peace Patrol.
Oh, sure.
I guess in a nod. Is that a normal music industry term, or is that kind of a Woodstock Summer of Love thing?
Never heard of it before. Haven't heard it since.
Well, there's a Peace Patrol of 1,200 guys or something, mostly local hires and some.
Guys carrying baseball bats with the word peace written on them.
Some New York City recruiting went on. Two different security agencies were tasked. But by Sunday, they are down just hundreds of people due to bad behavior getting fired, people just getting sick of the conditions and walking out. So by the time of the riots, you have these guys literally retreating before anything that happens. Chain link fences came down so that people could pour in. The initial reports after the initial media reports say attendance around 200,000, and more recent reports say actually 400,000, which I assume a lot of that is just illegal entry.
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of it's now a free entry zone, no man's land. And
they could probably secure that perimeter a lot better when it was an Air Force base and they had Air Force guards. But 400,000 people, even if you've got even if you've got a well-guarded base, it's hard to keep 400,000 people out.
Yeah,
Even
I mean,
if 200,000 have bought tickets.
If it's huge and it's just a chain link fence,
Yeah.
that's going to come down somewhere. You'd think the smell would start keeping people out,
Or drive people out.
but for a while it didn't. But yeah,
I want to say, though, one of the things that makes us sort of Generation X here in reviewing this is our tendency to try and draw a correlation between violent imagery in song and band and violence in the world. And that for the last few decades has really come up against a strenuous argument on the other side. And this is
I think we were making that argument too against Tipper Gore and the video game ladies.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. We're the generation that
Said,
initially
"Hey, wait."
was making the strenuous argument against it, but then as we get older, it's harder and harder to. When we talked about Insane Clown Posse, and they make the case about their own music that there's this like incredibly violent, disgusting, misogynistic kind of imagery in their songs, and they're saying, no, we're actually about peace and love.
That's how we vent those feelings.
Yeah, that's right, and that's how we attract angry kids, and then we
teach them about
teach
Faygo.
them love. And so it's the violence in video games argument, right? And there are an awful lot of people that do not want to entertain the idea that produces violence in the world. And so it's
right.
But at the same time, it's very hard to look at Woodstock 99 and the bands on the bill and not see it's a very testosterone-y energy, and to try and make a connection between that and the violence that did result. But I think we're going to come up against people that are going to say, hey, there's nothing violent about Korn.
We've got some cover here because it's not, at a few points it emerges from subtext. I mean, it's easy to say, hey, in hindsight, these guys were all just yelling angry stuff full of a very white male energy, and they riled up a bunch of kids. But in fact, it's happening explicitly from the stage. Like at one point, I think Limp Bizkit came on after Alanis Morissette, and the promoters were starting to get worried about a lot of the unrest and a lot of the violence.
Because I'm here to tell you, Alanis Morissette did not encourage any rioting.
She did not.
No.
But Fred Durst was asked
he's the worst.
He was asked to encourage the crowd to mellow out and just let's have a fun weekend. And he actually said, they want me to say mellow out, but guess what, mother effers? That's not what Limp Bizkit's about. I want you guys to go crazy and break stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have the bands from the stage literally saying, the vibe is not, you can go too far and let's chill.
I should say, disclaimer here, I am 100% against Fred Durst in every respect. And Fred, if you're listening, you're terrible. And you
think he might be listening?
You were a terrible influence on American culture, and as far as I can tell, still are.
Do you think a 1,000-year-old Fred Durst will someday uncover this archive and in the distant future?
For his success in the world always baffled me and continues to baffle me. I really believe he belongs in music prison, and I don't understand what Wes Borland saw in him. I really feel like Wes should have been in a different band.
I'm 100% okay with the idea that alienated, angry young kids listen to metal or punk or whatever it is, and it really helps them through those emotions.
I'm very pro Zach De La Rocha.
You're pro Zach?
I'm pro Zach.
So it is really helping your emotional state.
To
be pro Zach.
Being pro Zach really mellowed me out.
Are you part of Pro Zach Nation?
I remember, dancing or not dancing, but like angrily gesticulating with my hands.
And it didn't make you go burn down public property or have bad political opinions or beat up women.
No, I burned down public property and had bad political opinions. I didn't beat up any women. See,
you're 2 for 3.
Yeah.
But in this case, if somebody is actually telling you, I'm an official representative of this event and I want you to break things.
Right. I did it all for the nookie.
and then he did it all for the nookie, I guess. He was not discouraging the nookie.
And he encouraged people to take the cookie and stick it up their beep.
You shouldn't be putting cookies there.
Don't put cookies up your beep.
Those are not sterile cookies. Don't take a little
especially not in a sewage covered Air Force
Don't
base.
take a little eel fudge and put him up there. Eel fudge doesn't want to see that. Anyway, by Sunday morning, predictably, the place it looks like a refugee camp, and then it becomes a war zone. Like on Sunday morning, it briefly looks like it's going to be okay. Willie Nelson opens on the main stage, and it's like, okay, last night was nuts, but we're in good hands now.
Chill it out. Can you imagine Willie sitting up there and just the smell of the crowd? Just Willie's seen a lot, but I bet he wasn't that into it.
But he's followed by Elvis Costello, who really kind of thinks he should be an angry young man again.
Oh, dear.
And kind of pisses off the crowd. Like, I guess he starts with a really deep cutoff of Spike, maybe.
Yeah.
He plays Pads, Paws, and Claws or something like that, which, he thinks of as one of his angry songs. But the crowd turns pretty quickly.
Not into his dad rock.
And then it just goes from bad to worse and ends in fire and 5 hours of state troopers trying to...
What was there to burn? Like I've seen the images of these giant bonfires, but what are they burning?
That's a good point.
I mean, it's
Do you not bring firewood to a...
No. I mean, I guess they're just burning like the pallets of empty
I guess
water
there's
bottles.
wooden infrastructure you can... Once you overpower the merch alley, you can take whatever you want.
Right.
Pizza boxes. Maybe it's all
Pizza boxes.
Giant pizza box bonfires.
Yeah, I bet they're burning trash, which is kind of the worst thing to burn in terms of...
And anything you do at that point is going to make the smell better, not worse. But
good point.
But it's easy to see this moment, just because of kind of the testosterone-y music that's gone as far as it can go. Like, at least, there's many axes on which you can look at rock music, but one is, angry young white people getting their rage out, and that can have a dark side, as we've seen. And that end point of rock kind of burns itself out here. Like, once you've done this, you can't go any further. Not just artistically, that somebody like Fred Durst has kind of pushed that as far as it can go.
Artistically, in giant air quotes.
You can't,
throbbing air quotes.
Once you can't get bigger or dumber than that.
Yeah.
Right. And so you kind of, you can kind of see Woodstock 99 as the beginning of a retreat from that. And I don't know, what would you think of this? Do you think the stuff that came next could be a reaction to the dead end of that?
Yeah, I mean...
the dead end of Nookie?
99 was... I mean, indie rock was ascendant then. You had, Cat Power and...
an exceedingly gentle kind of indie rock, right?
And, Neutral Milk Hotel, Pavement. I mean, there was all this indie rock that was happening. And then in 2000, 2001, indie rock just landed hard. You've got that was the year that Mass Romantic came out, 2001, right?
I think that's, late 2000, the first New Pornographers record.
And
first Death Cab record?
Death Cab came out in that, Something About Airplanes, I think, came out in 99, but We Have the Facts was 2000. So the Shins came out right then too, that first Shins record, 2001. So it was like indie rock all of a sudden, and indie rock complete antidote, like in sound, in culture, in tone.
Melodic, gentle.
Like soft
embracing
vocals,
femininity.
Super feminist.
Even if all the lead singers were guys.
It was a very gentle time, and I think after 2000, I don't think of testosterone in music at all for about 10 years.
It had been drained. It had all been lit on
except
fire.
in hip hop. But like whatever we would call rock culture, which had splintered into 1,000 places by then. I mean, there's always going to be Swedish death metal.
But kids who wanted something angry to listen to, the mainstream option was hip hop.
Yeah, and
rock can't compete.
Indie rock was a place that you could go. Like anti-anger, I think, became a thing.
Because kids have those overwhelming feelings too. The sweetness and love that you can finally express because it's not for your mom. It's for some impossibly attractive guy or gal from study hall.
I mean, it's the other side of grunge that took kind of 10 years to evolve,
The emo side of grunge.
Yeah, and like that was the advent of a lot of body positivity, inclusiveness in rock cultures. That was when tall people started to intentionally stand toward the back of the room. A lot of
like that's the bright line for you.
but message board culture where people were super supportive. Live Journal, the dawn of a new era where the idea of making rock concerts safe for everybody kind of started to arise. You never saw an indie rock band stand up there and go, all right, let's see all you chicks get up. And, it was like completely different.
That's a good point, that it's the sense of community that comes out of the technology that forms that. These people showing up at Woodstock 99 were not looking to hook up with their fellow Korn fans that they'd met online.
And in my career, I was continually astonished by the fact that a lot of times Long Winters would come to a town, and the Long Winters concert would be an opportunity for all these kids who already knew each other from the forums to finally meet in person. So you'd look out at the crowd, and it was like they all knew each other, giving hugs and whatnot. And this was the first time they'd met, but they'd been talking on Long Winters forums or Barsook forums for
Look at the internet actually making people nicer.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. I mean, before it, descended into like judgy clickiness.
Brian Hyatt was at Woodstock 99, a rock journalist, wrote about it for SonicNet because that still existed. And has, recently wrote for Rolling Stone kind of a look back at how Woodstock 99 essentially created the next 20 years. And it's kind of convincing, later that year was the WTO riots.
I was back for that.
And then pretty much an unbroken line of kind of protest and anger in the streets that lasts to this day.
Right.
And that didn't start from Woodstock 99, obviously. That was just dumb kids who wanted water and porta potties. But, it did kind of create this, it was the beginning of this image of where the future is angry young people, and where, even well-intended activism is going to have a dark side that we're going to have to deal with. And, he goes further than that. It was a hot and dry weekend, just like our hot and dry future. You got to see a kind of a populist yo-yo in a red hat standing in front of a crowd of people.
I thought he was making a connection between Woodstock 99 and Bernie culture and
the other way.
Black Bloc.
Look at the Gen X voting numbers. a lot of these,
right. Like they're all Kid Rock fans.
A lot of these Kid Rock and Fred Durst fans grew up and work on our own Midwestern car lots. And they're the same people at Trump rallies, still kind of hooting and hollering at the populist guy in the red cap, telling them that they got troubles, but it's going to be okay.
What's strange is that 99 is this moment where were the majority of those attendees Gen X, or were they young millennials? 99, if you're
right on the cusp,
if you're 20,
if they're still in high school, they are
millennials.
They're old millennials. If they're in college, they're young Gen Xers.
Right. And that's a weird transition, right? And which way half the people at that show became Kid Rock Trump voters, and half of them became the original Bernie Bros.
The elder statesman among the Bernie Bros.
Yeah.
To his credit, Fred Durst has yelled at Trump online, I guess.
Has he really?
Yeah. Hey, but it's more like, hey, come on, man.
Hey, man.
What's with the tone? The country doesn't. You could be a leader. The country doesn't need this.
I love this.
He's one of these. Fred Durst is one of these guys who wants a new. A strange new tone from Trump.
Yeah, Fred Durst and Trump both did it for the nookie, but only one took that cookie. And that concludes Woodstock 99. Entry 1441.IS2808. Certificate number 27287 in the omnibus. Futurelings, we hope and pray that if you are a huge fan of any of these bands that we have sort of denigrated in this show, that you do not contact us at all with your defense of the music of.
I mean, one thing we know about evolution is
Durst.
that even 1,500 years hence, we are speaking to life forms who are probably doing it for the nookie.
Sure, absolutely, but
That's a constant.
But like, are they like rapping and rocking at the same time? Like, if you're gonna rap, if you're gonna rock, don't rap and rock. I mean, unless you're really good at it, you could rap and rock if you're good at it. Very few people are.
Yeah, many of the people at the top of that field are not that good at it.
That's the thing. I mean,
Kid Rock, not that great at it.
I think Andre 2000 or 3000. I think Andre 3000 is pretty good at rapping and rocking.
Andre 3000 from The Offspring,
But he's not. But he's not currently like producing a ton of music, as far as I know. At least in 2020,
he is not, sadly.
If you do feel obligated to defend Limp Bizkit, you can go on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages at Omnibus Project and scream into the void. If you really...
We have all muted the phrase Limp Bizkit at this point.
If you really, really want to get into a conversation about it, you could go to the Futurelings fan pages at Facebook, Reddit, TikTok, and get into an argument with people there who live science-based lives. And I will not visit the Facebook page during that period.
It'll be a dark time.
That will be the year that doesn't exist, 2021.
It'll take 5 hours and 500 state troopers to get the group back in order.
If you have any Woodstock 99 memorabilia that you don't want in your house anymore because of the bad juju, you can send it to us.
Post your stories, by the way.
No, we would love to hear it. I'm sure Futurelings...
If there were 400,000 people there, I'm sure some of you were there.
I bet that's true.
And have a smarter take than ours. Please add it to the record.
Yeah, please do. But you can send us your memorabilia at P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington 98155. If you really, really feel like you need to tell somebody your story and yell at us for something we got wrong, you can email Ken at theomnibusproject@gmail.com. But if you love the show, and I know you do, and you'd like to support it, please consider going to our Patreon at patreon.com/omnibusproject and joining our supporters at whatever level seems like it is the best fit for
There's
you.
the bottled water level, $4. Mm-hmm. There's the hot dog level, $5.
There's the $10 pizza slice level.
All weekend pass to Woodstock 99 cost. Do you have a guess here, John?
$100.
$150.
$150.
If you were to contribute $150 to Omnibus, it would be like you didn't have to see Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit live.
The amount of raw sewage that you will have to stand in if you support Omnibus at the $150 level is close to zero.
It's guaranteed to be zero, actually. Yeah. We will return your money if there is ever sewage at any point.
Here.
At a live show. I guess you and I would have done a festival.
Our word is bond.
This summer in a... The Sasquatch successor thing,
yeah,
right?
We were scheduled to appear in the comedy tent at the...
Where is it? Port Angeles or Port Townsend?
Port Townsend. But it got canceled, sadly.
That would have been our first music festival as a podcast.
Yeah, that would have been fun. Sort of.
We could have done Woodstock 99.
It's really hard to do spoken word in a tent at a music festival, but they keep trying to do it. It's part of the thing.
It's really now there's got to be one of everything, because then you'll get a broader demographic of ticket buyers.
Yeah, I mean, Todd Berry standing in a hot tent, speaking in his low monotone voice while guitars drone outside, squeal outside. Right over his shoulder. There's some band all in black pants playing super loud. Not that good.
I bet Todd still looks pretty cool in comparison to them.
Oh, he's so cool.
Listeners, from our vantage point in your distant past, we have no idea how long our civilization survived. We hope and pray that the catastrophe foretold by the Woodstock apocalypse may never come. But if the worst comes soon, this recording, like all our recordings, may be our final word. But if Providence allows, we hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the Omnibus.